First time in a couple of weeks, we get to catch up with the busiest man in soccer, bar none, Dylan Butler. And it's great to catch up with Dylan. Dylan, my friend, as always, great to have you on the show. Happy MLS 2024.
Yeah. Same to you and yours.
So it's been a bit of an interesting morning. We kind of were discussing everything going on from Matchweek number 1 and the replacement center refs, and how, frankly, some of them were better than what we currently see from our friends at Pro, and everything from 30,000 feet. But now that you are catching your breath for 15 or 20 seconds about everything Major League Soccer, and have kind of gotten the chance to take it easy and resurvey everything from 30,000 feet, what are your thoughts about Match Week 1?
Yeah, I mean, to that point, I think when there's no major talking points, I mean, you can talk about Mark Delgado's second yellow, certainly, but like there wasn't, I think, this flood of issues that I think a lot of people maybe anticipated would be the case. So, yeah, I think officiating wise, it was a positive, right? On the field, yeah, I mean, a few of the things, I mean, that LAG Miami game that obviously capped it. Super impressed with LAG to start things. That certainly unfortunate to have not gotten all 3 points in that one. But they look to be like, you always look at week 1 and be like, all right, well, not that you can bank a whole season on it, of course, but
oh, come on,
you kind of, I know hot takes are fun in February, right? But you look to see who's made improvements on the field, right? LAG certainly looked at. Portland looked at, although, if you go beyond the goals and you look at all the soccer nerd stuff, you'll see that their XG wasn't very good. They just happened to, cash in on all of their opportunities. LAG's was very good. So, certainly those two impressed, I thought. And then the other storyline kind of is, it's the tale as old as time, if you will, where teams in CCC seem to certainly struggle out of the gate in MLS. So
I think it was 5 draws in 6 matches.
Yeah, nobody won, right?
I think it was like 1-0-5 in the first 6. And before you came on, we were discussing the CONCACAF Hemispheric Extravaganza After Dark that was Saprissa and Philadelphia last night.
I didn't. I wish I was. I wish I was watching that. I didn't see that, but I certainly do know, off the rails in a CONCACAF-y way.
I mean, and it was since all the activity finished after 9 o'clock, then we gave it After Dark status. When you're not going to have 2 of your defenders when you are in the round of 16. When you look at, and since you mentioned LAG and Portland, we'll start out there. I think that LAG, the LA Galaxy, I think that they spent $19 million, if my math is correct, somewhere between 19 and 21 on bringing in Joseph Paintsel and Gabriel Peck. And you got to see just how fast Joseph Paintsel is. And literally, he comes in on Wednesday, and you're ready to go on the weekend. And Paintsel is just, the airplane contrails are behind him, or it's like, like you're looking at a comet and you see the tail of the comet. Somebody like Paintsel is going to cause a lot of problems in the Western Conference. Gabriel Peck, last 30 minutes, Peck ended up on the right-hand side. Paintsel shifted from the right to the left, and you've got Paintsel, Peck, and Puig, the P3. And it has nothing to do with nuts and cheese and making sure that you have all of your nutrients squared away. But I think that if they blend, if they mesh those 3 with the Bishop, Dejan Joveljic up top, if they don't finish top 4 in the Western Conference, then something's seriously up, and I think that Greg Vanney is in serious trouble.
Yeah, I think it's a fair shout. Look, last at least 2 years, we've said they needed to massively upgrade on the wings. They've done that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now they've given Ricky Booch guys to play off of and to play with, and he's not on an island all to his own. So I think that was good work in the offseason by LAG, and yeah, I think it's always. I feel like they're one of those clubs, and maybe it's a market thing, or maybe it's just a prestige thing of their past, or an original team. But like when they're good, and then LAFC is good too, like it just makes it. I feel the same way about the Pacific Northwest teams. I feel like when you've got rivalry teams doing well, I think it adds to it. And obviously just LA Galaxy, and it's super intriguing to me just how the two of those teams operate and live in that same landscape. Like it's not like there's here in New York, it's different because I mean, look, Red Bulls were Jersey, really, right? And
Yes.
and NYCFC is not. But there's also very different ethoses there, where it's Red Bulls, although they did splash cash on Forsberg, are a team that traditionally has not, at least the last decade or so, has not spent money. They've relied on homegrowns in their system. NYCFC was spending money. Now they're relying on younger South American talent, or just younger talent in general. But LAG and LAFC, I feel like they have that same ethos, right? Like they both want to spend, they both want to get the big name players. So the arms race there, I think, is pretty interesting.
Well, and to your point, I think that LAG, they were doing their thing. And it's all the glitz, all the glamour. You're bringing in Zlatan, you're bringing in Keane, you're bringing in Donovan, Stevie G.
Yeah, their own Galacticos.
Yeah, I mean, the Galacticos were there in Carson, which is right next to the Goodyear Blimp facility. So you could insert your joke here about that. But they had their speed. Anschutz Entertainment, the AEG, the owners, if they had their speed, they're going to spend the money. They're going to splash the cash. They're going to do their thing.
With no issues in market, right? Like their biggest issue was up north a little bit, and San Jose really wasn't doing that. So
unless Cosmo was threatening that Sports Center was next. Then LAFC comes into town, and LAFC is like, all right, fine. You do things your way. We're going to come in. We're going to spend money. We're going to get Carlos Vela. We're going to get all these guys. We're going to splash the cash. And then I think it turned into almost a keeping up with the Joneses kind of a deal where LAFC spends to a different level and a different dynamic. Then the pressure is there for the Galaxy to try to follow along. And that might have been LAG's downfall a little bit, is instead of trying to do their thing in their lane, they looked up at what was going on at the now BMO with LAFC, and they're like, oh, crap, they're having success. And I think that LAG felt the pressure, and that pressure ended up being a negative for them trying to catch up with LAFC instead of trying to focus on themselves. And you end up with what we've seen, where LAFC passed the Galaxy in a very short period of time, and the Galaxy are still trying to play catch up, and they finally might have done that, 3.5% of the season being complete and all.
Yeah, I mean, also their LAG's issues in their front office, right, have been well documented as well, right? So that, I think, takes some time, I think, to get out from under. So it appears they're doing that. Lo and behold, they have a former LAFC guy there too to do it, so that's fun. But yeah, no, I think it adds to it, certainly. A good LAG team, I think, makes that West also a lot juicier, if you will. Obviously the East ruled MLS last year in a big way. Still the better conference to me, but yeah, LA improvement, maybe Portland improvement. Yeah, we'll see.
No doubt. And we'll see if the Portland improvement was more just beating up on Colorado as they try to get used to Chris Armas, because that was ugly and it was ugly early, or if it was something that folks need to be concerned about with the Chris Armas hire and after week number 1 later on down the line. You mentioned the East, you mentioned New York City. So let's get into your thoughts about, you mentioned your thoughts about Red Bulls. I think Forsberg is going to be a problem. I think
they could be a problem. I think they are a, and mind you, this is what every team I think in MLS would love to have if they don't already have it. They are one DP striker away from being really, really dangerous. Like, dare I say, cup contending dangerous.
Wow. Okay.
I think, I mean, look, defensively, their DNA is there, right? And that's not changing. Their biggest issue these last couple of years has been scoring goals. They haven't had that guy. I mean, geez, they haven't had that guy since BWP was there, right?
Yeah.
Let's be honest. Or Brian White was there, but I mean, it was a different level with BWP. Now you've got a creator in Forsberg who will set those opportunities up. I think that was a terrific signing, one of the better ones in the offseason in the league. But now you need that guy up front. And listen, I think we've seen enough of a sample size to say Van Zier is just not that guy, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you have DP, I think at least a DP spot to utilize, and that's who they've got to get. They've got to get that guy, right, up front. And then, yeah, look out for the Red Bulls, I think.
NYC on the flip side, as they continue to build and prepare us for Dylan Butler Estates. When you look at NYC out of the blocks, I know that coming into the season, we talked about Nick Cushing and that his seat might be a little on the warm side. When you look at NYC early returns, when you're staring at what's going on with them so far.
Yeah, it wasn't very good in Charlotte, right? And it feels like it's the same issues like that have also plagued them, which is also the goal scoring output, which is remarkable to think, right? Because man, we're only a couple years removed from Tati being there and just a group that could score 3-4 goals at a clip, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
So is that a case as well of the same issues creeping up, or is it this group and there were some signings later in the preseason, does it just need a few more weeks to gel? That's again what makes the early season, I think, fun, right? You can get hot takes out of the gate, but I think you get a better idea after a sample size of 2 or 3 or 4 games.
Dylan Butler hanging out with us here. It's halftime with Dylan, as Dylan joins us every Ball Pass Wednesday. That he can catch his breath and come in and answer silly questions for a half an hour about Major League Soccer and about his beloved Newcastle.
Big one last night.
Yeah, that no doubt.
It didn't love having to go 120 with a team that's already out of gas, but
yes, and apparently Amanda Stavely is also having to deal with court issues and might be owing 37 million pounds in a court case, and so she's had to borrow. I think she's had to borrow like 1.2 million pounds over the last year to help with court costs in this case that she's involved in right now. We'll finish up with Premier League. We'll get into that at the end of things, considering it is a Wall Pass Wednesday. We mentioned what's going on there. Anybody else out of the blocks? Actually, let's deal with the extremes. Who surprised you, pleasantly or otherwise, in match week 1, and who concerned you more that we haven't talked about in match week 1?
I think the biggest surprise came in that Portland Colorado game.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. I kind of
Oh, I didn't have it. No, I didn't
I
have it
kind
either.
of I drank the Colorado Kool-Aid there a little bit, where and I don't think, again, it is one match, right? But like, I feel like I thought they made significant upgrades. Now I didn't think they were done uh, with the build, right? But the spine, at least, it appeared to be better, right? Zach Steffen in goal, you would argue it certainly should be an upgrade there, and Georgi Mihailovic, an upgrade there. You bring back Sam Vines, that was very good. Omir Fernandez is familiar, certainly, obviously, with Chris Armas playing the way that he wants to play. So, and Portland was, there were a lot of people out in Portland who were like, Neville, really? Like,
Yeah.
And then you hear in the beginning, right? Oh, by the way, Evander isn't playing, and we've got like 3-4 starting 11 guys out for this match. And then for them to do what they did in really the course of 45 minutes was certainly, I would say, the most surprising element of the first week of MLS regular season. And same on the other side of things. I had higher hopes, like I just said, for the Rapids. So I think that one was the biggest one. Although I'm not overly concerned with the Rapids, but it doesn't get any easier from here on, right? They've got a tough one in week 2.
Our long international nightmare is over, by the way.
Okay.
Minnesota United finally has a head coach.
Yeah, and an interesting one there as well, right? An assistant. It's another guy. It's funny. It feels like there's been trends in MLS coaches. Like one guy will, like, if one team hires, I don't know, whatever it is, right? Like, and they get success. Now that's like we've got to get our own Dutch guy, right? Like we've got like.
Oh, we like that idea. We like that idea. Let's go there.
Right. Apparently that's a breeding ground for coaches. And now we're going to England, which we've gone to a bunch, but yeah, Eric Ten Hag's assistant, youngest MLS manager, and Ramsey. I can't say I know a whole ton about him, and he'll be able to cut his teeth, I guess, right, with the Loons. So yeah, I mean, apparently the visa, or the work visa, took so long, yet you were in the same part of the world where you hired a manager. So
so all right, so let me see if I can retrace my steps here when it comes to Minnesota United and see if I've missed anything.
Yeah.
So you hire a chief soccer officer from Barnsley, Khaled El Ahmad.
Check.
And he has a work visa issue, or a visa issue, one of the two, or both. And he is hired in December, I believe. And because of the work visa issue, he isn't able to show up in the United States until Minnesota United is in preseason training in Tucson, Arizona. He decides that he doesn't want to, and this is published reports out of Minneapolis, St. Paul, that he doesn't want to really interact with players until he sees them in person.
Right.
And that seems to be his way. And then you finally get him in. Yet when he was hired, he said he was cool with the substitute teacher policy. He was absolutely, like I said, and if I'm off the rails here on any of this in my progression, please correct me. So he's fine dealing with things virtually, which I imagine you can. You can sit there and Zoom with folks and Zoom with front office and get things done that way. But he's cool with the substitute teacher policy. and he was fine starting the season with an interim manager. Then what you decide to do is go to Manchester United to get a 32-year-old who, by published reports, he's an assistant coach for the Welsh national team, sought after for jobs in the EFL and the Championship. I think Blackburn was interested. Swansea was interested as a member of the Swans Trust. I'd never heard of this as a part of wanting to replace Dyer late last year. But apparently the pedigree is there. This is going to be the battle of the extremes here for Minnesota United.
Yeah, there's no middle ground.
Literally, because I had them, when the season started, because this was before Ramsey took over, I had them as wooden spoon. And so, of course, what do? They punch Austin in the face and beat Austin 2-1.
Speaking of wooden spoon.
Yeah, and so we can get into Austin in a second. But all of this stuff that we've seen from Minnesota United has been, if you were to look up head scratcher in Webster's, the picture would be the Loons logo. I mean, and then you come up with a 32-year-old who's your head coach, who is still awaiting his work visa to be fixed so he can come over. Initially, it was supposed to be after the Manchester Derby. For me, this is big risk, big reward for Minnesota with everything that they've done up to this point.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's not a
it's not like hiring Big Sam. It's not like Big Sam sent his resume in, or Steve Bruce or Roy Hodgson or something, and sitting there going, yeah, I need an interim and I'll get this guy. I mean, this is guy who's got a pedigree apparently, but you went 32-year-old, youngest hire in MLS history to be your guy, and you're bringing him in at some point when the work visa is squared away.
And you've got basically a sporting director now and a head coach with zero experience in a very, very complicated league in terms of its mechanics, right?
Yeah, and apparently Ramsey's system that he likes is built on youth and speed.
Well, that's certainly a 180 from what we've seen.
There are 4 players on the Minnesota United roster that are older than Eric Ramsey.
Exactly. And they've largely jettisoned their promising
they have no academy.
Correct. So maybe start there.
So there's that. All of this stuff leading up to this has been a head scratcher for Minnesota United specifically. I mean, like, how do you not have an academy? How do you not build with youth? I don't know. That's a question probably for Adrian Heath, but we got to find him to ask him.
I mean, it's one that I've asked for years, right? Like, you would see a guy, I mean, he's been injured, unfortunately for him, but like, you see a guy like Mason Toye, right? And you're like, listen, I could see it, man. I could see this guy doing something. Oh, no, we're going to get rid of him. We're going to trade him away. You know, there's been other promising young players. You probably go down a list that they sign and don't develop.
Wait, wasn't Cade Cowell tied to Minnesota early in his playing?
I mean, Clark was, right? Caden Clark was.
Caden Clark, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
I was thinking of Caden Clark. Okay. But yeah, so Caden Clark, that's who I was thinking of. And because of the arcane rules of Major League Soccer and territorial, it's just it makes your head split open from all this stuff. But Minnesota United,
but these two guys will get it. You know, they'll certainly they'll have no problem trying to figure out all those things.
Absolutely. And it's like, yeah, so how do we do the salary thing? Can we just sign somebody? No, you can't. No, it's like, well, I'd like to sign this guy.
We bring up someone from one of our youth. Oh, what, we don't have youth teams,
right? Yeah, it's like, so can we go to our MLS Next Pro franchise and see what we can do from the academy? You can do the first part, but not the second part. And I mean, I'm looking at this, and Dell, our resident Charleston Battery fan, about Ramsey, he just really wanted to live in Minnesota, and I guess that could apply for both Khalid El Ahmad and for Ramsey, but. I mean,
it seems like there's a really nice pub there at the end line, right? So
And I mean, the mosquito is in fact the state bird of Minnesota. And so when you're in the heat of the schedule in the summer,
That makes
you're
sense
gonna
with
be,
all the lakes they have.
yeah, and with family up there, that's the inside joke about with Minnesotans is that the mosquito is the state bird because of
Mhm.
everything that goes on. But for me, all of these steps, why release Adrian Heath with only a couple matches to go if you're not going to make the playoffs? Then you get your first substitute teacher. Then he decides he wants to go and get a gig at Indy 11. Then you're on your second substitute teacher. Then you got your chief soccer officer who is hired, and he's cool with all of this stuff going on right now. I guess he had a plan. And Fred Dalton Thompson in Hunt for Red October had one of the best lines ever. So I imagine that you've got to play. Khaled El Ahmad has a plan. Then you're fine going into the season with an interim, with a caretaker manager. Then you bring in a 32-year-old for who has no first team head coaching experience, but you want to have him be the new head coach in Major League Soccer. Did I miss anything?
No, they also didn't sign any more Finnish guys, I don't think.
Well, I think after the Scandinavian variant, do you remember the Scandinavian variant that they had when they first started in Major League Soccer, when they signed guys like Alvabage and all of those guys?
Yeah.
I mean, that didn't work out after that first season. And
there's probably some Finnish agent right now, like trying to like, hey, Coach Ramsey, it's me. I'm over here in Oslo. No, that's Norway.
Yeah, I mean, you could do a blanket Scandinavian thought. I mean, that's easy. But
listen, we've had a lot of success with Minnesota. We've got a few other, guys in their 30s here. If you want to bring them over.
Well, yeah, and it'd be like, yeah, and Pookie's probably like, hey, Coach, you talk to my agent. We got some guys that can help you out. Are you under the age of 25? No, well, then we can't help you. But yeah, speed and youth is what apparently Ramsey wants to do. This is going to be one of the more interesting petri dishes for the season. Minnesota United is either going to come out of this looking like an absolute genius, and all of the stuff that we're committing to tape right now is going to come back and bite us in the you-know-what, or it's going to be one of the shortest tenures and largest paychecks that have been cut for two individuals that will not be working in quite some time.
It makes for interesting fodder, that is for sure.
No doubt. And so that's what we're staring at when it comes to week, the early part of the season. When it comes to match week 2, is there anything that sticks in your brain as to what you're going to be doing with your feet kicked up and making sure that you've got everything squared away, getting ready to think about everything going on outside of the CONCACAF hemispheric extravaganza? Hey, Minnesota's hosting Columbus, lead off of the weekend. I mean, that.
Yeah, and then you got a Florida derby as well on Saturday, right? In the afternoon.
Well, and this one, and I can't wait for the reverse fixture because it'll be at Inter and Co Stadium where Orlando is playing Inter Miami.
Yes.
It'll be a stadium that'll be named after them, but not paid for by them.
Or maybe they'll own it, by winning there.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Houston coming off of their wins got Red Bulls, but it's at home, so at least they don't have to.
They're also coming off Champions Cup.
Yes, knocking off all caps and sending them away.
Vancouver, we get to finally see. After they of course got knocked out of Champions Cup. I think Salt Lake. I don't know, man. Like I always like that match. I always like Salt Lake, LAFC.
Well, I mean,
it's a lot of fun.
It's the Chicho Arango sweepstakes, and so you'll get that. You'll get that return in Diego Luna, and so perhaps if you're looking at juice boxes, maybe you take the over, find what the total is, and see what's going on there at Rio Tinto. It's an early start, noon kick for our friends at the Riot, and so you might get folks a little sleepy coming out of the blocks for that one at 2:00 on.
You got a Cali Classico later on.
It's
always fun too.
See, San Jose, yeah, that's definitely the one where Cosmo needs to come out with the sign as a bit of a rematch. What else is going on with you these days with MLSsoccer.com and OSDB and Varsity Media, where it is indoors for you on a lot of different things?
Yeah, busy. A busy stretch of playoff basketball happening. So this past week I had Friday, Saturday, 2 on Sunday. So 4 games in 3 days.
Wow.
And here's a fun one for you too. I know I'm in stoppage time, but
That's all right.
I go to get a haircut Sunday before my 2 games on Sunday, and it was part of a championship Sunday, so there were other games before it. And my crew get there as I'm going in to get my haircut, and they go, "Hey, we're running an hour." They're running an hour late. I'm like, "That's not a good start."
Oh.
So I made sure I popped in. I got time to get a little lunch now, I guess, right? So got some lunch. Get there. We actually got. It was an hour and a half by the time we got to. So our 4:30 game started at 6 when our 6 o'clock game was supposed to start, and then our 6 o'clock game started at 7:30. And this coming weekend, I've got 2 games Friday, 2 games Saturday, 2 games Sunday. So,
well, all right. So as long as the coaches give you the information that you're looking for.
Yep, I've got 3 calls. I have a call at 11, 12:30, and 2.
There you go. And that's halfway through. So as always, my friend, great to catch up with you. Glad to have you back, as you are the busiest father/MLS person that we know. And glad to have you back on Wall Pass Wednesday looking at Matchweek 1. Be safe, my friend, and we will catch up with you. May all of the calls be on time, and you not have to wait 90 minutes between games, especially during playoff weekends. Be safe, my friend.
To that.
We'll catch up with you next week.
All right, bud.